I would, excuse me, City Control, I would respectfully ask if you all can provide us with an update, because there are so many things changing and being cut, and I don't think we have a full handle on what the implications of that are from a city financial perspective heading into budget season. I didn't mean to cut you off, City Controller.
No, sure. So, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, historically, information around grants has been housed in the individual departments. And so when the threat of all those grants disappearing popped up all of a sudden, a month and a half ago, finance did a real yeoman's effort of going around individually and pulling all that in. I think what the finding was, big picture, was overall exposure currently is about $2.6 billion in total grants.
Billion
with a B. Now, that's not in a single year, right? I think on average it's probably stretched out over 5 or 6 years. The big ticket items are housing, which is 99% funded by federal grants, and then health, which is, I don't know the percentage, but majority funded by federal grants. Is that accurate? So those would be the major areas that would be immediately devastated. In terms of analysis, again, we don't have the particular data in the controller's office at this moment. Our audit plan does include an analysis of the grant function and exposure and so on. Audit processes take a little bit longer than sort of quick in and out analyses. We'd be happy, with access to data to be able to kind of do an assessment, but we also will be doing a longer term assessment through our audit plan.
Thank you, because I know police and fire also rely heavily on grants.
And I also wanted to note, I think we're largely aligned on the overall estimate around the issue if we lost the non-taxable bonds. But we are doing, we had a takeaway from yesterday to do an in-depth analysis on that, and we'll return to you with kind of specific projections there. But what Director Dabowski just laid out, I think we're aligned on that.
Very much appreciated to both of you.
And I did want to mention on the tax-exempt status of the bonds, it's not just the general obligation, general fund funded debt that would, could be impacted by that. We issue tax-exempt bonds for the combined utility system, which finances the water, wastewater as well. So it's, there are broad implications.
Well, I'll be reaching out to our congressional delegation, but I would hope that as a city we are advocating fiercely to protect this. That's a big one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Kamen. You did a great job of pointing out circumstances and events impact the overtime. Certainly I didn't list, when I mentioned the 2 storms, and the police overtime, suspended cases. Kingwood, our fire department in early last year spent days around the clock in Kingwood. It's just so essential that we use complete information and not use scare tactics, because in previous years there was not the transparency that we're currently displaying today. The overtime was used by the understaffing of these departments, unfulfilled positions, particularly fire. But now we are doing a much more successful recruiting and retention. Then you move over to the police department, unfilled positions. We have 130 new officers, so we don't have that unfilled position revenue source, nor do we have the federal funding. So the truth of the matter is, in previous years, we've had large overtime calculations, but they were not coming out of general funds. Now, in terms of the police overtime and fire, we're responding to the public. We're never going to go into a policy that we're not going to pay for additional police protection. We're going to address that when we lay out our proposed balanced budget. We'll give the public an opportunity to join us in this effort to balance the budget and have ample police and fire. I also emphasize that we've got new directors in each of those departments that are going to help us with our efficiencies and our operation models. So we're certainly on the right track, but I think it's essential that we compare previous years apples and apples, and it's just disappointing to me that people that were here and leading that effort have a new approach when they laid out the overtime balance yesterday. And we're just not going to deal with the public that way. We're going to be transparent, honest, and let them know what our needs are, and that it will show up as overtime to improve public safety, our fire response time, our recruiting. Everything's headed in the right direction. In solid waste, we're going to meet our interim director in a moment. I hope everyone's going to be as impressed as I am. He's only been out there a few days, and he's got some excellent suggestions. He comes very prepared, and we're going to give him some additional resources. Previous years, the city only bought used solid waste garbage trucks. So there's been a lot of mismanagement. That efficiency, the Ernst & Young report, we're following it. And so I'm pretty excited about where we are, and today's very productive. But we've got the overtime under control in terms of how it's paid for and the impact it has. The shortfall, how do you say you may not be able to certify a budget when you haven't even seen the budget we're going to lay out? We're going to have a balanced budget because we must, and we're taking measures. I told y'all 2 weeks ago that the plaintiffs that ran it up $120 million are working with us. We're not going to address that this year. We're negotiating with them for future years. So we know what we're doing, I guess is the emphasis. And to get up and hear someone use apples and oranges is where we're headed is just wrong.
And I would say, Mayor, respectfully, as somebody that was here during those times in those administrations, you use all the tools that you have in the toolbox as you are doing to balance the budget every single year under significant constraints that the city is facing. For example, we are the only major city in the United States under 2 revenue caps that no other city has to deal with. So with unprecedented challenges, yes, we have to. I'm so glad we're having a conversation about the overtime allocation that's now in the general fund, when that wasn't necessarily as burdensome on the general fund previously. But every single administration, and I believe one of our faith leaders said that before, every administration deals with their challenges, and then it's up to the next administration to deal with the next set of challenges. And this is our challenge. And you're right, we do not have the vacancies that we didn't, that we previously had, but that is our burden and our responsibility to address, not to point the finger or say, would have, should have, could have. We have challenges ahead of us. I don't think anybody is saying that we should not be funding overtime. I think every district council member around the horseshoe pays for additional overtime. I know I do, to do everything we can for that. So I think this is just a very valuable conversation heading into.
And the revenue caps obviously play a major role, and also we don't have a power plant like Austin that sells electricity, nor a gas plant like San Antonio. So we face challenges no other major city faces, but we're meeting those. That's something that needs to be recognized today. This is transparency, full transparency, which hasn't been the practice, in my opinion, in previous years.
Councilmember Kamen, again, just returning to facts. We all know that the city has faced disasters year in and year out. And so that data exists, it's baked into what we've seen over the last decade. In Will Jones's analysis yesterday, and I just have to say, please refrain from attacks on the competence and the integrity of our directors. Thank you. But in Will Jones's analysis yesterday, not only was overtime related to Beryl and Derecho fully removed from the analysis period because it's federally funded, so it's not affecting the general, but Winter Storm Enzo was pointed out, and in Director Jones's remarks, he also stated, which is factual, that if you completely take out the month of February, when we had that spike in overtime, we're still running a record. It would still be a record high gap, even if we took February out entirely. And so, again, let's use facts. This is a real challenge, and it has to be addressed in a straightforward manner. In terms of certification, I will do my duty as the city controller to certify funds available if they're available, and to not do that if the funds are not projected to be available. So we do await the budget, and we'll go from there.